Hello there. In this yoga class I'm going to be focusing on leg strength and balances. So if you find balancing a bit of a challenge, why not do your practice quite close to a wall, and it's always there then if you need to touch it, just to get your confidence. I'm also going to have a chair handy which I can use for some of the poses, and there's a brick, or if you haven't got a yoga brick or a block, you could use a big book. Just tie it up to make sure it doesn't open up while you're working. So let's just start off with our feet underneath our hips. Draw the chin down towards the chest and roll your head slowly from one side and then over to the other. Feel a lift right up through your spine. Feel really, really tall. As you start to think about your breathing, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the nose. See if you can draw your breath really deep down into your belly. Come back to the centre, and then with the chin parallel to the floor, we're just going to turn to look from side to side, over the shoulder. Let the chin drop, and with your lips closed, let the chin rise. So slowly down and slowly up. And we'll leave that there. Roll your shoulders, big rolls. Let the elbows lift. Let the shoulders lift. Squeeze the upper back muscles, squeeze the chest. And then bring your arms in front. With your fingers linked together, just bend your knees and open up between your shoulder blades. So you feel a big stretch between the shoulder blades in the upper part of your back. Then take a deep breath and lift your chest and open your arms as wide as you can. Let's do that again. So, just opening up between the shoulder blades. This time, lift up first. See how tall you can feel. Stretch right up to the ceiling. And then open wide and squeeze the shoulder blades towards the spine. One more just like that. So feeling that stretch in the top of the back, growing as tall as you possibly can be, and then taking the arms just back past the shoulders, lifting the chest and squeezing the shoulder blades in. Hands coming to the hips, knees soft. Just tuck your tailbone underneath and then press it back. So you feel the movement happening in your lumbar spine. You might feel a bit of abdominal tightening going on as well. And then hips go from side to side, just nudging. Let your knees bend. A couple of circles in one direction and a couple the other way. And back to the centre. So we're going to start with a little warming sequence. We're going to come into chair pose. So let your hips press back as you lift your arms up towards your ears. Really, really reach through the fingers and press your heels down into the ground. And then bring yourself back up again. Good. So take a nice deep full breath. And exhale and push the hips back. Feel like you're slightly lifting up your tailbone. And keep your chest high with your arms really strong and straight next to your ears. And one more time. So sit into your chair. And this time we're going to move on. So push your hips back and allow your hands to rest above or below your knees.
Just make sure your belly's drawing back up in towards you. Slide both of your shoulders back towards your hips and press your hips back behind you. Every time you breathe in, see if you can make your spine feel longer, like your chest wants to reach forward and your tailbone wants to press back in the opposite direction. Now we're going to fold down. So let your knees bend as much as they need to and drape forwards from the front of your hips, bringing your hands down to the floor. Relax through the head and the neck. See if you can lift your tailbone up a little bit higher. Now bend your knees quite a lot, spread your hands out and step back to downward dog. So the feet are going to land at the back of the mat and they're going to be about hip bone distance away from each other. Spread your fingers out and bring your thumb in quite close to your index finger and press the hands away from you at the front. And then walk the dog by pressing your heels one at a time back towards your mat. Bring your knees down to the floor and lift your back up into a cat stretch. So you tuck your tailbone and you tuck your chin. When you're ready to breathe in, come to cow. So you lift your chest and your face and your tailbone and it feels a little bit hollow behind your waist. When you're ready for your next out breath, tuck under again and draw the belly right up and towards you, pressing down through the wrists and the knees. Breathing in, opening up. Let's do that twice more. So really stretching the back here with cat stretch. And then contracting the back muscles as we come to cow. And one last time. We're going to come back up to stand. So let's go back to downward dog. Lift your tailbone really high. Feel like someone is pressing your shoulders back so your armpits feel like they're moving backwards. And your heels are pressing towards the ground, but they may not touch. So now we're going to walk our feet up to our hands. Nice and slowly, just take the feet all the way up until they're under your hips and drape back down into that fold. And then to build the spine back up, drawing your navel, drawing your breath, and uncurl slowly. If you need some help, let your hands climb up your legs, otherwise the arms are relaxed. Take your arms right up above you and soften your knees, but squeeze your buttocks and lift your chest and point slightly back. And then come back to your centre and bring your arms down. So let's move into triangle pose. So if you're going to use a chair to help you balance in a moment, have it over here on this side. Turn your foot towards that chair or towards that wall. And this foot over here is pointing directly forwards. This heel lines up with that instep. And when your arms are lifted, your feet, your ankles are about the same distance apart as your wrists are above them. Shoulders down and chest lifted, with a little squeeze between the shoulder blades. Let's take a breath and imagine we're reaching along a shelf, stretching. We're nudging this hip towards the opposite wall. And then we're going to bring this hand down to find the leg above or below the knee, and this arm is going to reach up towards the ceiling. Now, shoulder up here tucks into its back pocket and you really open up your chest. Keep nudging into this hip over there and lengthen through the ribs to find a bit more depth if you possibly can. Feel all four corners of your feet holding the ground. The big toe, the little toe, both sides of your heel. Now we're going to go to reverse triangle. So Draw in your navel and your breath and come up slowly. And we're going to reach back in the opposite direction, over ourselves. So both arms are stretching back. The thighs are lifted. Makes your knees feel nice and strong. Now we're going to go into our first balance, which is half moon, or floating half moon I'm going to do. I'm just going to turn this foot down here very slightly towards you, and I'm going to move over and I can rest my fingers on this chair. I'm going to start pushing into the heel and the side of the foot back here and bring my arm up above me. Now this is where the yoga brick or the book can come in handy, because if you want to come a bit lower, instead of resting your hand on the chair, you could come down here and have your hand on that instead. Stay with this for the moment. Really opening up, pushing out through the heel behind you, floating in the sky. Just bend your knee and slowly bring yourself back down. Good. So let's turn our toes this way and do the same pose. Now if you're going to use the chair, just pick it up and pop it over here, because that's where you're going to need it. Or maybe take your book or your block over there. So we're turning our toes in this direction and this foot's pointing forwards, and our wrists are casting shadows over our ankles. So we'll pull up the thighs and keep the hip bones pointing to the front and stretch along that shelf again. Nudging this hip this time. Lengthen yourself. Take a breath and then breathe out and find your triangle. Now some of you might be more comfortable up here with your hand above your knee. So it's fine. You want to challenge your balance. Feel the four corners of your feet. Pull your thighs up and gaze to the top fingers. And then slowly push down through the feet. Take a breath and rise. Touch the ceiling on the way over and breathe out as you reach back. So the legs are really strong and straight here. And then return the arms. So moving into that half moon again, turn your toes very slightly forward, have your chair ready, move in and start to push the side of the foot and heel away from you. So I'm imagining the chair's there. I might want to stay really high with this pose, that's okay. Or I might want to come on down to the chair, hover, whatever feels good to you. Opening up. Just breathing nice and deeply. And then slowly, feet back under the hips. So back to where we were a moment ago. Coming into chair pose. Really pushing those hips back now. Our legs are a little bit warmer. Ready for the flat back? Push the hips back. Broaden the chest. Slide those shoulder blades back. And fold. This time, maybe try giving yourself a hug behind your legs. Hold on to your elbows. And draw yourself in when you're breathing out. Think about lengthening your spine when you're breathing in. So pick your tail up high, draw your chest down low, and then use the out breath to draw in close. And when you're ready to rise, loosen up the arms in front of you, draw in your navel in your breath, and uncurl your spine. And as I said before, if you like a bit of help there, climb up with your hands. Let's take that gentle standing back bend. So lifting the heart up and reaching back. Lovely. Okay, so let's come back to here again, and we're going to come into warrior two. So I'm going to turn my toes this way, as I did for triangle, and turn these toes forward so I've got the same positioning with my legs. If you think you might want a chair to help you balance, maybe put it in front of you. So take a breath and breathe out and bend down into your knee. Some of you might feel you want to go a little bit deeper, so you can just take that foot a little bit further away from you and let your hips drop down. This knee is above the ankle and this thigh is lifted. Make sure that foot back there is feeling quite strong, like an anchor, with your big toe and your little toe, as well as your heel, firmly holding the floor. Now your drishti, your gaze, is over the leading arm. Your shoulders feel like they're pulling down, your chest is lifting up. And we want to feel that our shoulders are sitting directly above our hip bones. Should we take a breath and see if we can go a bit deeper as we exhale? Now we're a little bit deeper, we're going to go into humble warrior. So this foot over here with the bent leg, just turn the toes slightly towards me and hold your hands behind you. If you can't quite hold your hands, hold your wrist, or even hands on the hips and elbows squeeze back. So as my arms reach away and start lifting, I start lowering. And I'm coming down inside this leg. Now squeeze the shoulder blades really tightly together and try and lift your hands high. And then slowly bring yourself back up. Bring your feet back to the middle. We're going to go to knee to chest pose with this leg here. So we're going to lift it up and we can hold maybe underneath the leg, or possibly we'd feel better holding around the front because we might be able to come a bit higher. Now this leg's quite heavy, so hold on tight but draw your shoulders down. Don't let the leg pull you forwards. And then I'm going to take this into a front thigh stretch. So I'm going to slide my hand down my leg, and this hand might want to hold onto the chair or a wall. And I'm going to have my knees together as I hold my foot behind me. Okay, stay where you are for a moment and I'll just show you from the side. And then you can let your arm reach ahead. Now you can stay where you are, stretching your quads, or you can come into dancer's pose with your hand either on the outside of your foot, or just take your hand round so you're holding the inside of your foot with your thumb and your big toe. And put a little bend into your supporting leg, so you might still have the chair there, yeah? Start to feel like that foot is trying to pull away from you. So you can open up your chest here and reach to the horizon. And your gaze, the drishti, is towards that leading hand. And come on down. Let's do those poses the other way. So bring your feet out wide again, turning this way. Find the centre. Take a breath and breathe out down into Virabhadrasana 2. So we've got the knee above the ankle here. Might want to be a bit higher with this one. If you feel you can challenge yourself, take that foot further back, come on down a little bit deeper. And to help yourself sit centrally with this pose, imagine someone's got this hand and they're pulling it back slightly, so you feel this side of your waist working a bit harder. And then nice and strong and straight through the arms as we come down a little bit further, pulling up this knee, foot really strong back there, looking towards the centre fingers. Okay, so humble warrior. This foot turns very slightly towards me. Link up the hands again, or hold your wrist, and start to lower yourself. Lengthen yourself and lower yourself inside that thigh. Lift those arms as high as you can, squeezing the shoulder blades as tight as they'll go. And then slowly take a breath and rise. And bring your feet back under your hips again. So moving into those two balances, going into knee to chest again, drawing the leg up nice and high. Tendency is to lift the hip with this. See if you can keep the hip bone down, but lift the knee up and the chest up and the shoulders down. So, chair maybe to hold on to, or perhaps, this is quite good done by wall, this pose, slide the hand down the shin and come into the quad stretch first of all. So you're beginning to lengthen the front of your thigh. And of course, if you want to stay here, please do. Either hold on to the outside of your foot or the inside with your thumb on your big toe. Bend your supporting leg, strong centre, and feel like that foot's trying to escape, and lift. And reach slightly forwards. Keep your gaze steady, and breath deep and calm. And come on down. Good. Let's go to our little flow again. So feet underneath the hips, ready to come into chair pose. So we're going to lift and sit. A little bit deeper possibly. Coming into that flat back. And this time I'm going to go into gorilla. So I'm going to fold down and take my peace fingers, these, and hold on to my big toes. So going in towards each other around the big toes like that. You can put your fingers underneath all of your toes if you prefer. Now, I'm going to draw myself down, bending my elbows. Pull the belly right up in towards you and feel the chest coming down. Lift the tailbone really high and feel like your sit bones in the middle of your buttocks are trying to move away from each other to give your tailbone some space to lift up a bit higher. And then if you can, feel like someone's blowing up a great big balloon between your elbows and open them right out. And as you're doing that, see if you can relax between your shoulder blades and let a nice big stretch in there. Just breathing into that lovely length down the back of your legs and that nice stretch in your upper back. And then let go of your toes or untuck your fingers if you've had them under your toes. And drawing your navel in your breath and uncurl like we did earlier. And let's come into that little back bend. Reaching back and lifting up the heart and coming on down. So just moving now into another little sequence. I'm going to come back into our wide leg position again, just like we did for Warrior 2 a minute or two ago. We're going to come down into Warrior 2. And then we're going to go to extended side angle pose. So we're going to leave the leg in this position near above ankle and we're going to stretch. And then let that arm come to rest. And this one really reaches and it brings itself to rest by your ear. Now once you're in this position, see if you can drop your hip. You want your knee to stay above your ankle, so some of you may find you want to move that foot a little bit further away, so you can bring the hip down a little bit further. leave your legs and reach back in Sun Warrior. So keep this thigh lifted, stretch back like we did earlier when we came to reverse triangle. So this foot's going to turn forwards and we're going to bring this foot in. And we're going to come to tree pose. So we're balancing again. So you might want your chair, you might want to stand by a wall. Try to turn your knee out. Squeeze the buttock over on this side to keep that hip bone back. And you can do this with your toes resting on the floor if you like, or you can bring your foot up to the side of your calf, or you can go right up to your thigh if you want to. Feel the warmth of your hands just pressing together. Lift up through your chest. And maybe let's spread our branches as we balance. Feel where your fingertips are. Feel that foot on the floor. Feel this knee pressing back. Know where everything is. Helps you balance. And rest. Let's repeat those poses this way. So turning the toes. This foot's pointing forwards. Take a breath. And breathe out. Just check your knee above ankle alignment. Lift this thigh. So let's breathe in and stretch. And then breathe out. And let the hip drop. I want to feel like there's a lovely long diagonal from this hand all the way through the side of your body down to that heel. Some of you might even want to come further down. Great if you do. Another breath or two. And then leave the legs and reverse warrior, sun warrior. So just reaching back over the body, but keeping down into the legs. And as we rise, bringing the weight over here into this foot. So this is the one we're going to be standing on this time, and we're going to come to tree pose by lifting this leg here. So if you want to leave your toes on the floor, do. Chair, wall to help you balance, fine. Come a bit higher, go up higher still if you like, and just bring your hands together. If you're using a chair, maybe just bring one hand to the heart centre and let your hand, the other one, rest on the chair to help you. Now squeeze the buttock on this side, press the knee there so you can feel the groin and the hips opening. A little squeeze between the shoulder blades, and then see if your branches will open up again and reach high. Just floating there. Let's go back to that little flow. So coming into our chair. Then into that flat back. Maybe your fingertips would go on the floor now, some of you. See if you can lengthen just a little bit more through the whole of your spine. Then you might want to bend your knees as we fold forwards, draw the belly up high, and this time just hold your elbows, or if you like, cross your arms, and just let your arms hang loose. hands down to the ground. And like we did right at the beginning, let's step back to downward facing dog. So spread out those fingers with the index finger pointing forward and the thumb quite close to it, and press down through the joints of your fingers and your wrists. Lift your tailbone really high. Bend your knees if you like. Press into your heels. Three-legged dog. Pick up the leg that's nearest to me with your heel up towards the ceiling. And either stay with that position or bend your knee and head your heel over towards the opposite buttock. Press your armpits down to keep the shoulders square, but to feel openness on that one hip. And now bring that knee in front of you and rest it down on the ground. And we're going to lengthen the other leg back so we can come down into pigeon to stretch the hips. If you find this position uncomfortable, you can get a block or a pillow and put it under this buttock, and then bend your knees, and then you can just reach your chest forward over the legs both bent in that position. If you're able to stay here with your leg extended back, then do. If this knee will go a little bit wider, flex the foot at the front, it will stretch the hip a bit deeper, but you must make sure the knee's comfortable about that. Lengthen yourself out and then possibly rest yourself down. This bent leg here, you need to really switch off inside that hip. Let the muscles stretch. So, let's slowly make our way back to downward facing dog. Spread out your hands and press back into your heels. Make sure those hands are really strong. So this time I'm going to lift the other leg. Push up through my heel. At the moment my hips are level, and please feel free to stay like this if you prefer to. Otherwise I'm going to bend that knee and I'm going to let the heel move over towards the opposite buttock. So I feel my knee pointing to the side, but I want to feel both of my armpits equally pressing back. So I keep my shoulders in the same position, although my pelvis has taken a little bit of a turn. Then as you centre yourself, bring that lifted knee through to the front. Ready for pigeon. So if this foot comes a bit further forwards, the stretch will be deeper, but make sure the knee's happy about that. Some of us may need to keep that foot a bit further back. And remember, you can sit over onto that hip with your knees bent. I always find a cushion underneath the hip helps, or a block, and then come forward like this into a version of deer pose. So let's think about relaxing that hip, shall we? Make sure your body's feeling lovely and long. Think of this hip bone here melting towards the ground. Just come on down if you feel you can. Fine to stay higher though. When you're ready, let's come on up. So, just sit in cobbler's pose for a moment or two. So if you want to sit on a block, please feel free, or if you've got a rolled up towel, something like that. Bring the soles of your feet together. And you can take them quite far away from me if you like, that's slightly more moderate. Holding onto the ankles, or you can bring them in a bit closer, hold around your toes. And let's sit up really, really tall, drawing the shoulders down, opening up the chest, and just gently pressing the knees out towards the side. Feel really lifted through your chest, drawing the breath deep down into your belly. And then let's go down onto our backs and stretch our hamstrings. Just take yourself back to the mat and lift one of your legs up. Hold on either side of your knee. Avoid holding the knee itself. You want to put a scarf or a belt around your foot to do. Relax your shoulders. If it pulls on your back, just bend this knee here. Start to think of the breath calming now. Breathe in nice and full and let the breath go slowly. Let's change. Just to come to a few moments of relaxation to finish, you might prefer just to come to Shavasana and rest here. But what might feel quite nice is to come into legs against the wall. I think this is a great pick-me-up, this pose. You can get a couple of pillows or a big squashy one like this. And you want to sit really, really close, almost as if your buttocks started climbing up the wall. And then I'm going to have my pillow handy. I'm going to swing my legs up as I slowly bring my head down, because I want to keep my hips really close up to the wall. So my hips are actually touching the wall here. Now you can have your back on the floor like this. This is great already. This is very comfortable. But I quite like having my pelvis slightly lifted. So what I do is I bend my knees, push into the wall so my hips lift up, and then I pop this underneath my lower back, the sacrum really, the flat part of your lower back, and just rest into that. And let your legs come to rest and just open your arms and relax. And you can take your feet a bit wider if you want. You can do anything you like. You can come to cross legs up here if you like. Anything you fancy. And you may find that you're quite enjoying this slightly elevated position with the hips. So maybe another time you could get a couple more pillows and you could lift yourself up a bit higher, or you could get something like a yoga block or a big book and put your pillows on top of it so it's nice and soft, but it's still a bit higher, and you can rest your legs up against the wall with your hips slightly on an angle. So in your chosen rest position now, whether you come to Shavasana, down, lying on the ground, you've got your legs up against the wall, just take a few moments now to come into your breath. Let your body relax and try to keep your mind in a still place. Let's focus on the breath straight away, drawing the breath into the body for 4 counts and exhaling for 4 counts. So we regulate the breath. Now while we're doing that, we don't want to become tense because we're concentrating. So just set up that rhythm and let it begin to happen. Check that your face is relaxed. Between your eyebrows, across your brow, your cheeks, your mouth, and all around your jaw. Feel open across your chest when you breathe in. With the weight of your back. Let it spread. Let it feel heavy. Loosen up and let go of both of your arms and your hands. Just think of your shoulders melting. No tension. And let go of the legs. If you've chosen to lift your legs against the wall, feel like the tension is draining from your toes, trickling down through your feet, around your ankles. It's trickling down through your calves and your shins, all around your knees. It's trickling down through the front of your thighs, the back of your thighs, the inside of your thighs, and the outside of your thighs. And your hips spread, sink, and totally release. Now think of drawing the breath in for 4 counts as before, and seeing if you can extend your out breaths to 6 counts. They're a little slower now. When you breathe in, make sure the breath's going right down into your belly. If you feel you can now, extend the out breaths to 8 counts. Your in breaths remain at 4 counts, and now you've doubled the length of your exhales. No tension in the face or the jaw, no tension in the shoulders or the hips. All 4 limbs feeling long and heavy and very relaxed. If your mind starts to wander, just come back and listen to your breath. See if you can feel your pulse. Feel your body working while you're resting. So, let's take 4 more breaths, beautiful deep 4 breaths. After those long out breaths, feel how ready your body feels to draw the breath deeply in on your next inhale. Now, let your breath settle. Start to become a little bit more aware. What does the air feel like against your skin? What's the temperature? Can you hear anything? Paint a picture in your mind of what those sounds mean. And now, thinking of our bodies, let's begin to waken our fingers. Just gradually stretching and curling the fingers as they waken. And then start to move your toes. lying on the ground, you might want to just bend your knees now and draw them into your chest. However, if you've been lying with your legs up against the wall, just slowly bend your knees and draw them down in towards you. If you're lying on the ground, then roll yourself slowly to the right. If you have your legs against the wall, then roll yourself to the side where you have no space. And remember, your hips have been a little bit higher, some of you. So there's just a little way down to get to the floor. Once you've opened your eyes again, nice and slowly, bring yourself back up to a seated position. Take a big breath. And breathe out slowly. Thank you for joining me. Stay safe and stay well. Namaste.